we know that, right? Do we agree on that?
Yeah.
City, Arsenal, Liverpool.
Maybe not in whatever order.
In whatever order. What order do you want that three to be in? Do you care?
It doesn't matter to me. As long as Villa are fourth, I'm not really bothered about what order the rest finish in.
So the fact that you don't care, or that doesn't affect
I've got no
Villa.
Rivalry with any of those teams, have I?
But what I mean is, like, you don't even care about. I don't want to see City just do 5.
I think it'd be interesting. It would be obviously more interesting if Arsenal or Liverpool win the league. Obviously, I think Arsenal, after what they've done over the last few years, if I absolutely had to choose,
you'd like to see them,
the fan base is insufferable, isn't it? That's the problem. There's some of their fans, jeez.
But if you win the league, ironically that's the one time when you can say what you want, mate.
Of course.
So if they're unbearable for winning the league, it's like usually they're unbearable because you go, mate, what have you done? You haven't won the Champions League, you haven't won the league. Slow down. But if they win the league, you have to just go, well, all right, yeah. You won it. The best team.
Yeah, the people you work with, Arsenal winning the league. You wouldn't want Liverpool to win the league with the people you work with, would you?
Absolutely not. But also, and a lot of people and Arsenal. But I would still just, you know what? For I would just applaud them and say, you know, you won it. We'll get your thoughts a little bit later, more briefly. But do you think you'll be able to balance the top 4 and the Champions League? We've seen the first sort of glimpse now of energy zapping, you know, at Aston Villa's game against Bayern Munich, and then into sort of a drab draw against Man United. Do you think that was just a one-off, or do you think that's actually what people were talking about?
I think there's a caveat in that Villa picked up a couple of injuries in that Bayern Munich game. They already had a few injuries anyway, so by the time the game rolled round, if we would have had a few more players fit, I think there would have been a bit more rotation, but he didn't have the luxury of doing that. Unai Emery's actually the first time, despite having a lot of injuries in his time at the club, it's the first time he's ever referenced injury, so that probably tells you everything that you need to know. But I'm not concerned, no. I think Villa just had an off day against Manchester United. Took a point, you walk away with a point in the end. But Villa can balance both. I'm confident of that. They've got the perfect manager to do that. And if you know, they've played Wednesday and then Sunday. Last year they were playing Thursday, Sunday, and they managed the season and managed to finish 4th. I know you're playing against better opposition, but you're going to be playing on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, and then, you know, sometimes on a Sunday, sometimes on a Monday. I'm not concerned by the schedule at all now.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Spurs blew it at the weekend away to Brighton. It was very comical. It was brilliant to see. You know, smashing Manchester United 3-0, and deservedly so. They were brilliant last week at Old Trafford. To only be 2-0 up against the Seagulls and lose 3-2.
They're too open. They are too open. We said they were open last season, but last season with their midfield, they would usually line up with kind of 2 defensive midfielders, 2 number 6s. This season, there's a number 6. Then you've got 2 number 10s playing, and then your front 3. Your fullbacks are coming into midfield. You're leaving your 2 centre-halves with a lot of work to do in transition, Romero and Van der Beek. Yeah, but come on. Geez. You've got to have at least 3 players back, I would suggest. I think they're too wed to their style. You've got to adapt a little bit. You know, if ever there was evidence of that. 2-0 up against a good Brighton team, shut up shop a little bit.
100%. But look, you know, Ange Postecoglou said many, many times, and we shouldn't even be surprised, he ain't changing a thing.
No, there's a lot. I admire it in a lot of ways. He ain't changing a thing. That midfield, it's open.
Yeah, absolutely. But a lot of Spurs fans have said they really don't blame Ange Postecoglou for that. That was more a bozo gene within the players, like being 2-0 up like that, how the players can capitulate, make mistakes like they did. Ange said that, you know, it's his worst defeat since he's been there, and he said it's way below what we do. But that was, you know, basically shocking. Do you see a bit of that? Like, the players got to take some accountability there, because everything they were doing was right. We're 2-0 up, cruising. And when you do see somebody defending for some of the goals, it's comical.
With Spurs, I don't think you can pin it all on the manager, but I also don't think you can pin it all on the players. I think it's probably somewhere in the middle. If you 2-0 up at half time, you know, they probably did think if we carry on the way we are, we'll get that 3rd goal and that will kill the game. But then when it goes to 2-1, you've got to be more switched on, you've got to be more alert, and you've got to be more streetwise. And Tottenham weren't any of those things. And before you know it, it's 3-2. It's not like Brighton won that game late.
Yeah,
you know, those goals all came pretty quickly. And we saw signs of this in the first game of the season against Leicester, where they battered Leicester in the first half. Second half, as soon as Leicester scored, it was really their first attack, Leicester as well. You thought, Leicester are going to score again here.
Yeah, and Vardy should have. And Vardy should have. He missed a big chance. I think it was a left foot. Should have really scored.
So it's not really heeding lessons, is it, with Spurs? It feels.
And they will continue to be like that. Does that make them miss out on the top 4? I think it does. I think there will be hovering around there, 6th, 5th, a few points off it, but eventually I don't think they'll get it. What about Newcastle then? Because they got in it a couple of seasons ago. Obviously, we saw they were in it last year, Champions League, but got 4th season before that. Unbelievable for the fans, and some of the nights they had at St James's, that infamous night against PSG, but ended up finished bottom of the group in the end. And we saw how difficult it was for them to manage both. This season, they've been okay. They've competed in some games, but a couple of draws here and there. They've not been. It doesn't feel like it was for them the season that they were getting into Champions League.
No, if Newcastle get their best 11 out and they're playing at St James's Park, they can beat most teams. Yeah. I was obviously drew with Man City the other way, so you always forget because they've got a 0-0 at Everton. You almost forget that they took a point off Man City the week before. The clean sheet was actually quite big for them at the weekend as well because they've not been getting many of them. There's just something that feels like it's missing at the moment from Newcastle. Maybe it's a player down the right hand side. We know Eddie Howe was desperate for someone in that area. It's hard to incorporate Gordon and Harvey Barnes because they both want to play from the left and they're both better from the left. Once Tonali gets going, and they've got Tonali, Guimaraes and Joe Linton, that's a really, really good midfield. But with Botman missing and they've had injuries in the defensive area, I just think that they're not going to quite have enough. They were actually my call for top 4 at the start of the season because I thought we'd see a Newcastle a bit more like that Newcastle in Eddie Howe's first full season. But from what I've seen early days in the season, I don't think they're quite there.
Where does this leave Chelsea then? Do they have an outsider's chance and any other wild cards? Because Chelsea, they'll score goals. They're still very open. They give away a lot of chances. Some of their defending's not great. But when you have Cole Palmer doing what he's doing and the threat of Nicholas Jackson in behind and then the plethora of other players around that, you take your pick out of Neto, Sancho, João Felix. Take your pick, Madueke. There you go. He's doing well exactly. So they've got so much attacking in Nkunku. They've got so much attacking power there that can you rule them out? Can you rule them out? Top 4, yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I make Villa and Chelsea the most likely to finish 4th at the moment. They're the two I would pick. I think I've been impressed with Chelsea. Their defence and goalkeeper concerns me. I know the goalkeeper's had a good game at the weekend, but he's not a top 4 goalkeeper. He's as likely to throw one in the back of the weekend, but He's as likely to throw one in the back of his own net as he is to make a world class save.
The game before against Brighton, look what he
just struggles with consistency and sometimes the basics of goalkeeping look a bit beyond him. Sanchez, Brighton were happy to not have him, so Chelsea should never be signing. He was a cast off at Brighton. I'm not saying they should never sign someone from Brighton. They shouldn't be signing cast offs from Brighton, and Sanchez was a cast off. They don't have a dominant centre half. I think they've got good centre halves, good defenders in the building, but they haven't got that leader, who's their main man at centre back. You'd say Colwill, maybe.
Yeah,
still
kind of
quite
keeps changing. Fofana's in and out,
Like Fofana.
Adebayo sometimes coming in.
I like all their centre backs individually.
But there's not the one.
But is there a partnership there?
Badiashil's nowhere near it. Disasi out of it now.
Yeah, there's not really a partnership there at the moment. I'm saying for Chelsea that's the partnership that's going to keep clean sheets. They'll always score goals. I like what Maresca's done. I don't think they've lost since the opening day to Manchester City. So he's gone in there and done a better job early doors than I thought he would. They're managing the Premier League and the Europa. Were they in the Conference League, Chelsea? The Conference League quite well so far, in that he's basically just saying, I've got 13, 14 players that I'm going to use in the Premier League, and then I've got a Europa 11, and then, like where Nkunku plays up front, and Neto's played, and Mudrik's played. He seems to have 2 teams, and that seems to be working for them right now, but Chelsea and Villa would be the ones for me that are fighting out for 4th. Tottenham will be somewhere around it. Newcastle probably after that. I mean, we've talked about Manchester United in every single part of this show so far. Absolutely no need to talk about them in this part.
No, well, in terms of Man United...
No, flex.
No.
We're talking about top 4. We don't need to talk about Manchester United.
I'll tell you why.
Are we talking about Brighton?
There's one caveat. I'll tell you why. Because if the ownership shows some backbone and change the manager, you can't rule it out. You can't.
They're just going to let it dwindle, though.
That's what I'm saying. That's what it says. It's a big if. That's why my only caveat is...
I think even if they change manager with those players at the moment...
It'd be a stretch. It'd be a stretch. Look, we won't get top 4. Man United won't get top 4. Nowhere near. But it can drastically improve by changing the manager. I definitely believe that.
Mate, it can't get worse.
Exactly. And like you said, you drew parallels to it about, when United taking over in, 17? Where was you?
We were 17th, yeah, stinking a place out under Steven Gerrard, yeah.
Yeah, so look, it not that obviously that isn't 17th to top 4, but things can happen that you don't think will happen.
I mean, you're 14th, it's not too far.
And we're a couple of points off Spurs, and Spurs are like, oh, okay, well, you know what? But Brighton are a couple of points above that. You never know. You never know if they make it. But right now, miles off it, and you're right. Erik ten Hag will probably stay in situ, so there's no point even talking about United. The wild card, Brighton? Nah.
Not got Europe, have they? They've not got Europe this season.
No.
Good start. They've shown a lot of resilience in games as well. That they won't get. They'll be top 8, I would think. Yeah. They might not be a million miles away. But one thing you got to remember as well is that depending on how teams do in Europe, it's been a decent start for the English teams in Europe.
Yeah, it has. Yeah,
fifth,
yeah.
Fifth becomes
we spoke about it all,
in play
last year until it wasn't
coefficient FC.
Yeah, Fulham they're trickling away as well, but no, you'd imagine that those players will probably fall off. One interesting thing, just to go back to Chelsea, actually, is we're going to the same way we said earlier in the show about Liverpool, about finding out about them. I think when Chelsea start to play some more of the big teams, because they haven't really done it yet. They played Manchester City. They've got to play Liverpool out the break. They've got Arsenal coming. They've got to come to Old Trafford, even though that's an easy task at the minute. But it's one they've got to tick off. So it will be really interesting to see that. So your top 4, I'm guessing, is obviously the 3 we said and Villa.
I just look at the squads and more so the manager.
Yeah,
he doesn't let standards drop. He won't let bad results kick in. We got 4th last season. We're better than we were last season. I just think Villa's the sensible call for 4th, I would say. Yeah, it is, but you're here, and I would like you to not be in it. So I'm going to go that you won't. Oh, I hope you go down. That's what I hope.